Jesse Davis from Hydraulic Games. I am Yan's neighbor. If you know Yan from Sanook Games, I am like 2 buildings over, just north of Bangkok. I've had a really crazy run. People are like, "Oh, you moved to Thailand to run a mobile games company?" No, I moved to Thailand because of my wife and just to try something new. And I ended up starting a mobile games company. So a little bit about me, because I am definitely an oddball in this industry, and pretty much nobody's heard of me. So I basically moved to Thailand about 2.5 years ago. Quit my job as a systems administrator. That's right, I'm a IT geek, and with an art degree. I'm an artist too. So I moved to Thailand, and just to make some ends meet, I started doing some freelance artwork, and that snowballed. I'm like, oh, I need an assistant. I hired an assistant, and then sooner or later I had 3 people, and all of a sudden I have an office, and it just grew and grew until I was, managing art services and doing a lot of outsourced work. And a lot of those customers were customers in the reskin and app flipping industry. Now, this is the dark side of the game industry, the side that nobody likes to talk about, but everybody knows who they are. Everybody's seen all these clone apps, low quality stuff flooding the app store. I like to think that my clones were at least high quality, but yeah, and the gamer side of me, because my first system was Pong and the NES, and I'm that old school gamer, classic PC games. So part of me is like dying inside making all these games, but it was good money, so we kept doing it. Recently, we've been transitioning to making bigger Unity 3D games. So we're massively shifting focus right now, because I think that side of the industry is going down. But even though I'm coming out of that industry, I feel like I learned a whole lot through doing that stuff. So when you've produced hundreds of games, you go through a cycle that most indie developers don't get to go through, right? Because you're releasing constantly. You're paying attention to the App Store. You're figuring out what works. You're messing with ASO and optimization strategies. And I thought, you know what? That's stuff that could benefit a lot of little indie developers that don't get that experience. They don't get to launch a lot. So, and we learn to produce very fast. So the point of today's lecture is trying to teach you maybe a little bit about what I've learned about production methods and making games quickly, and maybe you can take some of that away. So I know some of this is a little controversial. I'm not talking down to you guys or telling you this is what you should do. I'm saying this is what I do, and if something I do happens to relate or hit a button with one of you guys, feel free to take it and use it for yourself. All right. So the first thing is, what is a reskin? Is this a reskin? There's some terminology here. And, is it Flappy Bird? Is Flappy Bird a reskin? A lot of people confuse reskin with clone, and that's not really the case. Reskins can be big or small. So this is a game I reskin. This is one of my first ones. So reskinning is essentially the process of taking existing code or code base, the game's pretty much finished, and retheming it. Changing all the art assets. In this case, we changed the squirrel to a cat ninja, which is a little hard to see. And I changed all the background stuff to a Japanese theme. So we changed, running squirrel to, ninja runner kind of game. So big difference in themes. You have a whole different approach, different appeal to maybe different market segments that didn't like the first game. Maybe they liked the second one. So we're going to go on. Reskins do not necessarily equal clone. Yes, clones are usually reskins. But a lot of clones are meant to be copies, not necessarily changing themes. So I would say clone and reskin are not synonymous. Reskins can be 2D or 3D. A lot of people are used to 2D reskins. You can reskin 3D games too. You can switch out art assets in Unity. You can change textures. You can swap models. So it's very possible to take a 3D game that's already existing or something on the asset store and switch out the elements and create something completely new. Reskins can also be mixed with original art. And some of my reskins, I don't just settle for something that's normal or exactly what the old game was. Maybe the old guy got it right, maybe he got it wrong. Maybe maybe it could be better, right? Or maybe we need to add another element or special effect. So go ahead, add it in there. Can apply to big and small games. A lot of people think reskin small, crappy games, but reskin is a production method, not a business strategy. So you can scale it big or small, and there's some really big companies that are doing this and making a lot of money from basically reskinning or retheming their own existing code. And it's not just limited to art replacement. A lot of the most successful people that were doing reskins weren't just doing reskins. They were coming up with key features. They were nitpicking. They were pulling the game apart. They were adding in new features, new monetization methods, adding review prompts here, changing a menu structure to flow better. So again, it's a production method, but it's very much coming away from we've got to create everything from scratch and starting to be a little more open-minded. How can we produce stuff faster? So that's kind of what I'm going to go into. Does anybody recognize any of these games? Any of this look familiar? A little bit? Okay. Every single one of these games are either full or partial reskins from existing titles. I'm sure you guys know Candy Crush. Anybody heard of Candy Crush here? Anybody? Maybe a little bit? Heard of Candy Crush once or twice? All right, so Candy Crush Soda Saga is just like another spin-off of the existing Candy Crush. Yeah, there's new mechanics in there, there's new graphics, but they've used a lot of their old assets and their old code to make that game. CSR Classics is a complete straight reskin. That's the same exact CSR game with classic cars and a redone UI. But I'm not throwing these guys under the bus. I don't want people to think that I'm accusing or I'm pointing fingers at these guys, saying these guys did something wrong. I'm saying these guys did something right. These guys are brilliant. These guys are making money. FIFA. Anybody play FIFA soccer games? NHL, NFL, any of the EA games? EA is notorious for doing this. Taking the same game, changing some characters, changing a new roster, slapping 14, 15, or whatever on the end of it, and boom, putting it out there. And people eat it up. Angry Birds, they did a Rio version, pretty much the same thing as classic Angry Birds, just new art. And Supercell, Boom Beach, they've reused a lot of the code from Clash Clans. Not the same exact game, but you know the underlying code is similar. So the big guys are doing it too. Okay. Apparently I'm missing some text. Reskins allow for faster production while maintaining quality. Reskins do not have to be crappy. In fact, reskins allow you to focus almost solely on the art. So you can really produce high quality reskins in a record amount of time. You can reskin your own code. I do this. I will spend a month or so developing a code that I feel is good and monetizes well, and then we'll reskin it in like a week. So I will produce a full 3D game that's my own code, 100%, in a week. I can launch one game a week. And now that's probably not polished and tested as well as it should be, but can I do it? Yes, I can. Reskinning gives you more chances for a hit. maybe your first game, Turkey Trot, didn't do so well, but your second game, Ninja Run, is a smash hit, right? What people don't know about Clash of Clans is Clash of Clans itself is a reskin, I believe, from a previous game that the guys had made with a space theme. The space theme didn't do that well, but everybody knows Clash of Clans, right? So they changed the theme and they got a hit. You can also build on what works. And this is sort of an iterative process. So let's say you build your first game. You've put time and effort and love into it. You've created a masterpiece. You've created something that monetizes well. Or you find a little niche in the industry that you've capitalized on. Reskinning allows you to build on what works. So you can take that same code that you already know makes money and change the theme to it. Change the zombie theme to a space marine theme. And you do need to, if you're reskinning your own stuff and you're bigger or more polished, you may want to space your games out. So you don't want to release the second game right after the first one because that looks a little suspicious. But you can still come back and reskin your games later. Faster turn time lets you take advantage of trends. So there's a hot new monetization method. You're like, Crossy Roads really killed it with their monetization method. I want to use some of that incentivized video, or whatever the trend is. Well, if you can produce fast, you can take advantage of that trend. You know, if you got a 9-month project, we'll be on the next trend by the time you release your game, right? So there's advantages to producing quickly. Okay, so I use the old reuse, reduce, recycle. So this is, now we're getting a little away from reskinning and we're getting into smart development. So when I start a game, how I start the game is I try to get a lot of input. What do I have? You know, what art assets do I have? What code do I have? What tools can I use to streamline production? A lot of that can include procedural content generation. What tools do I have to generate a procedural level? Okay, I've got this awesome procedural level tool. What games can I create with this tool? What would be cool to do? If I have this environment, what do I see myself doing in this environment? Is this a sniper game? Is this a racing game? What can I do with this? What's trending in the market? What games and themes are hot right now? You know, try to, you know, I'm constantly aware of marketing and what is hot and what is trending on the App Store. This is a big one. What can I produce in blank time? This is the opposite of how you think, right? You start a game, you're like, I want to make this awesome game. And the next question is, how long does it take me to make this game? Well, this is backwards. This is, I have a month. What can I produce in a month? How can I make this amazing game in a month? So you work backwards. What do I need to do to get this game to fit in a month? And this doesn't need to be limited to production. This can be a prototype. How can I build this amazing game idea that I have in X amount of time? And you can come back and polish that later, but this does force you to deliver a product quickly. And also, what produces a good ROI? You know, what types of games and themes? There's certain games that I've done, like let's say Whack-A-Mole. I've done Whack-A-Mole reskins before. It's a really boring type of gameplay, but it has a lot of animation to it. So I've got a ton of like animated moles and characters doing all this stuff, and the ROI is poor. So for me, that code or that game type is not worth my time. And how can I optimize for maximum organic impact? Again, this is piggybacking off of themes and ASO. Do you guys know what ASO is? ASO is App Store optimization. It's, you know, coming up with keywords and themes that are hot or you think you can rank for. So that's always a part of my thoughts. You know, how will this game rank on the App Store? Is this something that I think we can rank for? All right. Now we also use a little bit of stock photos here and there. It's great way to fill in. So there's kind of some do's and don'ts for using stock. So this is stock photos, stock art, assets off the asset store. If you guys are into Unity and buying assets, here's some do's and don'ts. Do's, stock photos and textures can accelerate game design. That's a quick way to build fast. And if you don't have a stock account, I recommend you get one. Spend time on gameplay and features, not building trees and rocks. Again, stuff can be polished later if you want to go through the polishing phase. But some people are like, well, I got to build everything from scratch, and I've got to, spend 2 days on this bush. Well, maybe you should build your game first and then come back and worry about the bush later. So if a pre-made asset allows you to plop a tree in and focus on the level design and the user experience, that's more important than worrying about the quality of the trees and the rocks. So I use App Store, Unity Store assets all the time. I mentioned procedural content. Build big games fast. I use Terrain Composer for a lot of my levels, where we can generate beautiful terrains, customize them, add levels, and we'll build a game with 12 or 14 original levels in a week. That probably still needs to be polished and tested, but we can produce content very fast. The most important thing is keep art quality consistent. And I'm sure everybody's seen the guy that's the programmer, and he's like, I don't have any art skills, so I'm going to buy a whole bunch of stuff off the asset store, right? and he's throwing this together, and he's got a cartoon character and this mushroom and with a Call of Duty guy, and you're like, it's not really working. So that brings us to don't let programmers with no art skill use stock art and pre-made assets. It looks bad. And this is a discretionary call. If you think that the programmer does not have the necessary design skills or eye for what looks good, don't let him do it. Get an artist involved. I figured this out. My programmer does not make level design choices, and he does not make, art choices. My artists do that. Don't use common recognizable assets like the Unity store freebies. If you want to get your butt handed to you in Steam, use whatever's on the front page of the Unity asset store. Apparently, Steam people hate that. There's certain assets that are so used and so recognizable that it's just going to be like, hey, look at me, I'm using a bunch of Unity store assets. There's a lot of other places you get quality assets, Turbo Squid and all sorts of stuff. So definitely use some original stuff, and don't rely on store-bought assets 100%. You should be able to fill in content where necessary. I think store assets are awesome. I think it's a great way to accelerate game development, but I don't depend on it 100%. I make sure my artists can fill in little gaps, little things, can make a trash can or whatever I need to make the game complete. So make sure you have that ability. Let's see. Okay, so we're wrapping up. I know I got like 3 minutes. Reskinning. Why reinvent the wheel? Figure out what works. And the examples of the hit games and what's popular are already out there. Now, every now and again, you get a game with a pretty original concept like Does Not Commute, where you have something really fresh and original, and that clicks. But there's a lot of other games like Call of Duty, Candy Crush, that these games just work. They've figured out the monetization process, and they've got it down to a T. Little indie guys don't have the marketing budget to be A/B testing all of these marketing strategies and monetization. So, look to the big guys that are doing it right and try to pull some of their strategies for your game. I know it doesn't sound like a production method, but it is, because it's affecting how I design my monetization for my games. And play other mobile games. Take notes about when you are tempted to spend money. So play Candy Crush. When do you feel like you're reaching for your wallet? All right, make a note of that time. Whether you buy or we don't buy, that is an impulse buy. And that's the things that I take note of when I design monetization. So I'll pull similar features in my game. Let me see. All right, thoughts on the industry. I'm missing some tags. So the mobile industry is changing. Even as of last week, Apple has pulled the new section from the App Store. So maybe it's a good time to go to Google Play. I don't know. But I think more than ever, quality is going to stand out. Now, the faster you can get to that quality point, the more time you have to polish. So hopefully some of these production methods will help you guys out, or kind of think about, hey, maybe we can re-engineer this process. Maybe we can use some better tools. How can we streamline what we're doing and do it faster? Because I think a lot of people are not being efficient in what they're doing. Like, I think almost every person in this room could look at your process and say, how can we do this a little faster? How can we spend a little bit less money on this project? If you can build a game for under $1,000 and you can build it quickly, you have a little more leeway on hitting your return on investment. So I encourage you guys to think about it. Q&A time. Are we good for Q&A? Questions? I know it's early. Maybe you need another cup of coffee. Anybody? Yeah.
I thought it was interesting how you compared reskinning your own games to reskinning other games.
Mm-hmm.
Because reskinning your own games, I think that should be fairly easy as a developer. But how do you go about it, reskinning someone else's game? Don't you have to make a clone first, or how does it work?
No, there's a lot of sites out there that sell code. So there's a site called Chupa Mobile, Sell My App, Blue Cloud Solutions that are like typical reskinner sites. And these are legal. These are developers that are saying you can buy a license for my source code for $2.99, and then you can do whatever you want with it. So reskinners typically will buy licenses for source code. So that's a very legal, perfectly acceptable way to obtain source code. If you guys have never launched an app before, reskinning like a basic code is a fantastic way to get into the app industry and go through the process. Get used to your ASO, fine tune it. It's an educational experience more than anything. So if you're like Apple Watch, I want to try to make an Apple Watch app. I've never done that before. So I bought a source code for like $15 off of Code Canyon, and I'm going to try to launch an Apple Watch app just for the sake of me going through the process, going through the motions. So yeah, this can be definitely helpful. I'm not, the point of my talk, if you haven't gotten it, was not to say, hey, reskinning's awesome, come on board and like start producing bulk apps. That is not the point of my talk. The point of my talk was to try to get, show you guys maybe a few of my production methods, get your brains turning, and maybe make you think a little bit about how you can be a little more efficient in your production methods. Any other questions? Let me see. I tell you what. Email me. If anybody wants to talk shop, I am happy to share my knowledge, whatever I have, submitting all my apps and doing all my reskins. So yeah, just email me at Jesse@Hydraulic Games. I'm happy to send you a list of sites. I think the low-end reskinning app flipping model is kind of dying. Honestly, Apple and Google are both sort of implementing small policy changes to clamp down on volume, which overall is a good thing for everybody, right? less bulk apps out there, but you're going to have to make your games a little bit bigger to stand out. So if you want to try it, go ahead. But I'm not going to preach to you that this is the salvation and this is an easy way to make money. It was 3 years ago, and right now it's getting tough, honestly.
I think the biggest challenge we're facing is really the user acquisition.
Yes.
If we just push a game to the market without doing any kind of UA or marketing, the organic download is getting to next to nothing almost these days. So how you can solve this kind of problem if you do risking,
That is the question of the day. How do we get more people? So, all right, very quickly, my general strategy is twofold. One is that hopefully you get a boost in keyword ranking and any features or new app store placement from Apple. They're starting to pull some of those categories, so there may be less of organic exposure from your initial launch. The second thing is you need to have good ASO. I have friends that are pulling thousands and thousands of downloads off of the first week, and I am too. So if you're getting 100 downloads, you're probably not doing something right. ASO is something that you need to look into, and unfortunately for indie developers, you guys don't launch enough. You guys launch once every year. So by the time you figure out what's going on with ASO, you're going to forget it a year later, or you're not going to be up on it. So there's certain tricks and things on the App Store and Google Play to try to get your ranking higher. So that's a whole nother topic altogether. But you're welcome to email me if you want to discuss methods. Anybody else?
Hi.
Hey.
Of all the apps that you put out in the App Store, what's the most popular genre of games?
Personally, I've done the best with racing, just because it's easy to replace assets, not a whole lot of animation, and I actually am passionate about racing games. I love racing games. I've always loved racing games. Love cars. So, yeah, maybe something that has long-term value and that you feel like you can put some effort into, and you have some expertise in that area would be good. Definitely stay away from casino unless you've got a marketing budget. It is a bloodbath in there. Yeah.
Okay, we have time for one more question if there's one. No?
Anybody else?
No. Well, thank you, Jesse. This was a very interesting talk.
Yeah. You're welcome.